All right, so let's talk about best practices working with React. Even though this workshop is not specifically about React, we'll talk about React, of course. It's just essentially a bunch of rules and common sense patterns we should look after when working with any web application. So, to give you some context, I have a very simplistic app with pretty much nothing on it, as you can see. You said you cannot see my screen, guys? Okay, it worked. Okay, fantastic. Sorry, I thought someone said that you couldn't see the screen. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so we got the Hello app title. There is nothing on it. So let's build some stuff. The important thing here is not about the content. I'm not going to build anything particularly complicated. To me, the importance here is about the way we structure that content. So let me create few components. If you remember, to create a component with React, we could simply create a new function. Let me call it app title. And then as part of the app title, I can return, bit of HTML. So imagine that we want to build an app about I have no idea about football teams, for instance. Once again, the topic is completely irrelevant. So football teams. So now I will display the title. It's like doing something like that. And then apart from the app title, I can create a function called, let me call it title for simplicity reasons. Title. Then I will create a new component called team, if you want, yeah, and the team will return a piece of HTML as well. So div, and then after the div we got, for instance, the h3. We got the name of the team. So let's play a bit with some data. I don't know, champions or national titles, whatever. Yeah, this is just a basic application written with React, and of course now I can display each team passing some details. Do you remember, guys, how can I dynamically provide details like the name of the team, the number of titles and things like that? How can customize this team template component? No, not the styling. I want to be able to display different teams on my screen, because at the moment, if I have three teams, yeah, you see, I believe you see we got the same information displayed 3 times, which is not correct. I want to display 3 different teams. So how can we do that? Correct. And how do we pass the parameters? Do you remember how we call this argument, man? Okay, that's all right. Chandan. Okay, so that was called props, guys. Please, yeah. And now, can you tell me how to replace Juventus with the name of the team? What should I type here? Okay. Okay, let's pass something called name. Okay, and then what else, Chandan? I'm talking to Chandan, right? I'm talking to someone else. Okay. Yeah, for instance, props dot titles. Yeah, correct. And then what else? No, that's it. That's it. That's all we want for now. That's it. Yeah. But now, how do we bind? How do we pass that these properties, the name and the number of titles? Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Correct. Something like that, right? Name equal. What's your favorite team, Chandan? Okay, mind you. And how many titles they got? Plenty of them, right? Titles. I don't know. Whatever. 45. Man. What's your favorite football team? Arsenal, fantastic. And probably they got few titles as well, right? I mean, you get the idea, of course, right? So you can pass few properties. Let's have just two teams for simplicity reasons, and then boom, what happened? Props.name, national titles, props.title. Can you tell me what the hell is going on here? The strings are not interpolated properly. Why is that happening? As it is. Yes. To change it to what? Are you sure? I mean, even the name is wrong, man. Look, the title, the name of the team is props.name instead of Manchester United, Arsenal, or whatever. So React is failing to transform the variables into actual values. Why is that happening, guys? Do you remember what was the important keyword or the important character, to be more precise, we have to type in order to interpolate this expression into a proper JavaScript value? I'll give you three options. We have to surround the expression with either square brackets, curly brackets, or hashes. Guys, curly braces. Make sure you rewatch the previous workshops because it's a bit hard to progress if these fundamentals are not under control. Yeah, I mean that wasn't even part of the workshop. I was assuming that was clear enough. Yeah, so with curly braces we can transform whatever props.name is into the actual value. Manchester United, Arsenal, and pretty much the same with the titles. Yeah, 45, 24, whatever. You see? Now I got my details. Yeah. So yeah, if you don't know anything about that process, if you forgot how to deal with it, yes, please watch the previous workshops. We essentially the ones about creating components and passing props with React. And if you have any questions, please let me know afterwards. Yeah. So that was just pretty much the setup. So as you can see, we've got three components: the main app component, the team component, and we also got the title component. And of course, you can imagine that the more content we add to the application, the more components we will have. So hopefully you agree with me. Eventually, we may have a complex application, may have hundreds of components. So now the question is, how do we orchestrate them? Do you think eventually we're going to drop all our components into the main app.javascript file? What do you think? Yes or no? Let me rephrase the question if it's not good enough. Should we work with large files or with small files? And why? Yes, that's a good point actually. That's a good point. Working with small files makes them easier to reuse. Yeah, that's a good argument. Also, let's think about team collaboration. Yeah, one of the problems you'll face in the future is dealing with Git conflicts. if two of you, if for instance Chandan and Man, if you, out of coincidence, if you are changing the same file at the same time, you are likely to have a clash. Because as soon as you commit and you push the file, one of you, the one pushing the changes first, should be okay. But the one pushing the changes last may have issues. Yeah, because two of you have changed the same file at the same time, or at least at the same period of time. Yeah, Git is sometimes a bit special when dealing with conflicts. The message here is, if you work with smaller files, you are less likely to be touching the same file at the same time. Yeah? That's one of the reasons why you should try to avoid dealing with large files. So how do we break our folder structure down? I'll show you. We got three components: title, theme, and application. So what I'm going to do is to create three folders. Well, I got the app already because the app is like the root component. So you got that component already, right? When you install a new app with React, you got that component already. So I'm going to respect it. However, because I created two components, title and theme, on my left-hand side, I'm creating a new folder called title. Pay attention to the case and to the semantics, guys. If my component is called title with capital T, I'm creating a new title folder. Why? So now I can create a new file called title.js. So what's the plan? The plan is, now I'm going to move my title component from app.js into title.js. You see, I'm delegating the responsibility of displaying the title of the app to the title component. Title folder with capital T has a title file with capital T, and that file has a title component with capital T. So, what do you think, guys? Will it work after my change? That's brilliant, man. Look what happened if I show you the web browser. Title is not defined because we've moved the component to a new file. By default, JavaScript, React, they don't know where the hell the title component is. Functions are by default private. Yeah, functions are by default private. So if we want to reuse them somewhere else, we have to export them. Yeah? When you export a function, when you export a component, you are essentially creating some sort of API. Yeah? You are telling the other developers, hey, my title component has a bunch of functions. In this particular case, I got only one, but obviously I could have 45 functions here. Yeah, whatever. However, all these functions at the bottom are private, except the main one, which is the title. So I'm exporting it. But now, if I'm exporting a function, can you tell me what am I expected to do here from the app component point of view? Correct. Exactly. We have to import it, right? Guys, look at the syntax. Look at the syntax. This is not going to work. This is not going to work, but let me get closer to the eventual solution. Import the component name, title, and then from the location of the component. How do we know the location? Guys, how do you access? Look, the title folder is on the same directory as the app.javascript. So do you know how to access a resource which is on the same level, on the same directory as the current one? That has nothing to do with JavaScript. If you are using the terminal in Windows, in Mac, in Linux, that's essentially the same principle. So the solution is typing, yeah, Dot slash, correction then, dot slash. And now, dot slash means, hey, now we can navigate through the folder structure. So I can select title and then slash. And finally, after typing slash, I can type the name of the component, which is title.js. Yeah. FYI, the extension of the file is optional. React is smart enough to determine the extension of the file. It is sometimes a good thing to explicitly add the extension because, as you can imagine, you may have multiple files with the same name and different extensions, as we will see in a minute. Yeah? But for now, that's the most simplistic approach to importing components in React. I said before that that was not fully correct. And the reason is, if we follow that syntax, React is assuming that that component, the title component, is exporting a single component. What that means? If we want to export a single component, we need to add a second keyword called default. Okay. Export default. Default means, hey, title is the main component that we are exporting. So now that code should be fully correct. Let me have a look. However, we got another error. Look, React must be in the scope when using JSX. That's important, guys. That's important. Don't forget something. Look at the extension of my file. This is a JavaScript file. I hope you agree with me. Yeah, that's a JavaScript file. However, that component is returning a piece of HTML. That's not valid. When talking about pure JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, you cannot do that. That's something that React made up. Yeah, but in vanilla JavaScript, you cannot do that. In other words, if we want to be able to return a piece of HTML from a JavaScript component, we have to tell that, hey, this is a React file somehow. And how do we do that? Importing React. That's the way it works. Import React from React. Then now JavaScript knows that this is a special file, that this is a file that is compatible with React somehow. And based on that, we can do all the React tricks. We can create components. We can deal with the state, buttons, whatever we want. So now, as you can see, it works. So, do you have any questions?
And likewise, we create multiple components.
Yes.
One question I have is, so you explained very interesting things. So in a component, you can actually have multiple functions.
Yes.
Most of those functions will be exported
Private.
private.
Yes.
They're the main function.
Correct. That's correct, Chandan. That's correct.
So this is very similar to object-oriented concepts.
It is definitely. This is very similar to object-oriented principles, as you said, Chandan. When you have a class, for instance, the class has a bunch of private methods and private properties, and eventually will have some public or protected properties and methods that are the ones you want to expose to the outer world. Yeah, so that's the same principle. Absolutely, Chandan. That's the same principle. Cool. So, anything else, Chandan, man? Yep. Yes. How many is too many? My rule of thumb here is, please create one file per component. That's it. Yeah. That has many advantages, man. Because, for instance, imagine that I got a problem with the title, something is not displayed as I expected. So, for me, it's very easy to discover the architecture of my app. Because if I have a component called title, where the hell the title component is? On the folder structure, I will quickly notice that the title component is in a folder called title and then in a file called title.js. So this has proved to be a very efficient manner of organizing your components. Yeah? Let's do the same with the theme, guys. So, I mean, pretty much the same process. I'm going to create a new folder called theme. The theme folder will have a theme.js respecting the case. Once again, this is just a convention. Yeah? So that's my convention. So now I move the theme component to the theme file. Remember to import React, correct, from React. So now we can do all the React tricks in here. And finally, what else? We have to import theme from theme, slash theme.js. Yeah? So that's, if we need to export it, fantastic. You're absolutely right. We need to export it. Otherwise, the theme component will remain private and only accessible as part of the theme component. Yeah? Of course, look, theme does not contain a default export. I forgot to add export default, correct? Yeah, just remember that's important. Why the default is important? Because technically speaking, without the default, we can export an API. We can export multiple things like export get welcome message. I don't know, that example is a bit stupid, but technically speaking, function get welcome message, that makes sense. So return welcome to the app, something like that. So now the theme component is exporting two functions. The theme function, which is a React component, and is also exporting a random method to display some text. But now the question is, how do we import both? Yeah, because now from the app.js, we know how to import one, like we did with the title, yeah, easy peasy. But what happens when we have more than one exported component? How do we solve the problem? Well, what we need to do, pay attention to the syntax, guys, is to use curly braces and now a comma separated list of imports. Theme, comma, get welcome message. We use the curly braces whenever the exports are not default. So in this particular case, I can display the title, and I can actually, let me create another component because that's a bit weird, right? Let me create a component called, I have no idea, footer. That's completely stupid, right? Ignore the semantics of the exercise. I'm just trying to present an example. So copyright, Codery, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I hope you get the point. Now the theme component is exporting two components. So to display the footer, that's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. I import it in a comma separated list of arguments, and eventually I display it. It's another component. Yeah. So if I refresh the page, I got my copyright message at the bottom of my page. So technically speaking, yes. Technically speaking, every component can export multiple functions. However, even though this is not rocket science and we don't want to be very aggressive on that, as a rule of thumb, I will suggest you not to do that. Keep a single public function per file, because thanks to that technique, you will make sure you don't mess it up. You keep your files as the smaller the better, right? So one file per component, export default, and now we remove the curly braces because we only import one thing. So we don't care about the footer anymore. And now, yeah, now it works. So, any question, guys? I remove it, but I can bring it back if you want. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, no, that's very optimistic. I don't think JavaScript works in that way. You have to explicitly tell which functions are public. Yeah. Yes, that's the same thing. No, no. So that look. So what React does by default, and I'm not a big fan of that. So React defaults all the method publics, and at the end they do export default, which is the same thing. Yeah. You know why I'm not a big fan of that, Chandan? And to be honest, this is something that Facebook does, but I don't like it. The reason why I don't like it is, when I open a new file, when I open a new component, I want to find out the public methods because that's to me the most important thing. That's the API of that component. Yeah. Imagine that because of whatever reason, my team component is large enough. It's something like that. Yeah. I got a lot of HTML code on it. If I open team.javascript, what is /r the exportable methods of the component? I don't know. I have no idea. I need to scroll down to find it out. Yeah. However, if you put the export default as a prefix of the function, that's immediately visible regardless of the function of the length of the component. Yeah. I understand that Facebook said yes, but in reality your components should be very small, so you shouldn't have that problem. Fair enough. Yeah. I'm once again, I'm not very Taliban, I'm not very aggressive with my thoughts here. However, I find slightly unnecessary to have to write a new line to declare your exportable component or components. Yeah, I find much easier to do it inline, like here. Anything else, guys? Cool. So one more thing. You saw that I created a folder, and you may be wondering, hey, wait a minute, why this guy created a folder for the team and for the title if in reality we have a single file? So can you smell why was the reason why he did that? Yeah. Yeah, I agree on that. Chandan. Also think about something, CSS. We haven't talked much about CSS yet, but look at how cool this pattern is. If I got my title components, now I got my title.javascript, and unsurprisingly, I can have my title.css. Look at how cool this is. Yeah. So now if I want to move my title component around, I'm encapsulating my components or my important assets really well. Title.javascript and title.css. So now the question is, look, on the left-hand side, I got my title on .javascript. On the right-hand side, I got my CSS. Yeah. So how do we style our title? What I used to do is, on the root element of my title, imagine my title is something slightly more complicated than that. Yeah, something like that. I got a div, whatever. Yeah, I got some HTML structure, and then inside of the div, I got an h1. Fantastic. So what I always do when I want to style a component is, first of all, I assign a class name to the root element of my component. And what's the name of the class name? Unsurprisingly, is the same as the component. Class name title. Yeah. So the next thing is, on the right hand side, on the CSS, I refer to the title class name, and then I apply whatever styling is relevant on this component. So for instance, let's change the color to red. Yeah. What do you think, guys? Will this work? Will my football team's title be displayed in red color? That's correct, Chandan. That's correct. From the JavaScript file, now we can import title.css, and that's it. So you see, app.js is responsible of loading the title. the JavaScript file. And the JavaScript file is responsible of rendering some HTML and also the CSS. So if we go back to the web browser, you can see I got my football team's title displayed in red color. That's pretty important, guys, because thanks to that, we are essentially namespacing our styles. For instance, imagine that we want to add some additional styling on the H. Let's add some sort of description. So let's add a label here. You or your favorite football app, whatever. Yeah, this is like some sort of subtitle. Imagine that I want to change the color of the subtitle from red to blue. So now I can do that. I can say, hey, please change the styles of the labels that are part of the title. So color green, for instance. Yep. So if I show you the website again, not sure if you can appreciate that, but I got my title in red color and I got my subtitle or my description in green color. So what happened, guys, if now I add a label somewhere else? If I add a label on the app.javascript, imagine that once again I'm adding some sort of footer, copyright, blah, 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 blah. Will this copyright be displayed in green color? Yes or no? Why not, Chandan? It will display in green color. What do you think, man? Do you agree with Chandan? So you gave me a good answer. You gave me the correct answer, but I don't think. All right, guys. All right. No, it won't. But it won't, but not because the reason you thought, because of a different reason. So the CSS will be rendered. Why the CSS will be rendered? Well, because we are rendering the title component. As soon as we render the title component, the CSS will load. Yeah. So that CSS will definitely run. However, guys, that's the basic way of the CSS works. Pay attention to this selector, line number 5. So what we say here is change the color of the labels to green, but only the labels that are inside of the title component. Is the copyright label inside of the title component? No, it's not inside. It's a sibling. You see, title, and then we got the label. But that label, that copyright, is not inside of the title component. In other words, you see, my change on the subtitle didn't affected other labels, which is correct. I've seen many developers doing that. That's horrible. Do you know what's the consequence of that change? Yeah, so I removed the .title prefix on my CSS selector. Exactly, man. You're absolutely right. That will make every single label green. Look, what the hell? So my changes on the title component should remain as part of the title component. I shouldn't change the global style of my multi-million application just by creating a new component. That's why, as a matter of good practices, we should namespace our styles, yeah, by adding the name of the component in front of whatever the classes are or the selectors are. So now you can see I can do whatever I want on my. I can break it. I can do font size 100 pixels. I can do something very weird, yeah, which is wrong. But hey, I'm breaking my component. I'm not breaking the entire application. You see the difference, right? That's correct. I mean, sometimes you do really want to declare global styles. Let me give you an example. web apps, every single web app in the world, they got links and buttons, right? Sometimes you want to have some sort of style guide. If you have a button, you may want to keep consistency with your style guide, to have the same style for all your buttons. Fantastic. But that's why you got your app.css. Yeah? On the app.css, which is like the global style guide, here you can customize your button, you can customize your links, you can customize your list, you can customize whatever you want. Yeah? Here you declare your global styles. But whenever your styles are particular to a given component, please declare them into the corresponding CSS file. That's a good question. What happened if I have another label on my app.css? So by default, all my labels are blue. Yeah. However, my title color is green. The label on my title color is green. So what will be the eventual color of the label that is part of the title? Will it be blue or will it be green? That was very romantic, man. No. It will be green. I'll show you. Here you go. You see, the copyright is blue because it's some sort of global. However, the title label is green. Why? Because that selector is more specific. Next week, I would like to do a workshop about specificity, which is a vital principle when working with CSS. Yeah, but we'll talk about that with more details on the next week, man. Anything else, guys? Yes. How many? You may have hundreds of thousands of files. Yeah, easily. If it helps, on the Code platform, we got about 80,000 lines of code, and each file, I think, is on average like 50 lines. So that means we got 80,000, 8,000. We got about 1,500 files. Yeah. But that's fine. That's the best way to scale your project. As part of the evening bootcamp, you don't work by teams. You don't create team apps. But, in real life, you collaborate with other people. And when you collaborate with other people, it becomes absolutely vital to isolate your files. It's like the coronavirus. We need to isolate ourselves. So when talking about files, that's maybe a bit unfortunate example, but that's the same principle. The more isolated the files are, the less likely they are going to clash. Yes? Okay, so yeah, that's fine, because, look, you can rename them. Imagine that you got on the app.js, you got another title component coming from somewhere else. Can I rename it? Can I rename title to Brexit? Yes, that will work. Why will that work? Because we did something really well. We exported the component title using default. In other words, there is a single exportable method in that file, title.js. Because there is a single method being exported, at the time of importing it, we can rename it. That's valid in JavaScript. Import Brexit, that's fine. Why this is fine? Because internally, Brexit will refer to that function. So if, because of whatever reason, you have multiple components with the same name, which may happen, I agree with you, that's okay, because even though you export them with the same name, when you import them, you can rename them. So you prevent from having any conflict. And as you will see, everything will still work. Exactly. At the time of importing it, you just change the name. That's correct, man. Exactly. It's the same principle. Yes. It's creating not an object. It's a reference to a function, which is a memory address, to be precise. Anything else, guys? Yes. Yes, absolutely. You see, my app.js is very slim. Yeah. Also, don't forget something. In reality, guys, I'm building a components tree. So I got a root folder, a root component called app. The app component has two subcomponents, yeah, team and Brexit. Let me name Brexit to title. Yeah. But in the same time, the title, sorry, the team component may have another subcomponent. Look, function, team, detail. I can do that. And what the team detail component can do? Well, it can display some details about my team. So, for instance, instead of displaying national titles, I can display detail and then value. I can do something like that. And what that means? Well, what that means is now I can pass props. So I can display props.detail and props.value. So the team component will render a team detail with, or let me change detail with text. Text equals number of tournaments, I don't know, number of tournaments, and then the value will be whatever. I can just make that up, yeah. And likewise, we can display other details, yeah. We can display, I don't know, since 1911. We can display country, UK, things like that, right? So, yeah, let me simplify the example a bit. So imagine that I got something like that. Let me rename. Yeah, that's a bit complicated. I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible. So now my app component renders a team component, and the team component, actually I can keep the name. So name equal Manchester United, Man U. The team component renders three details. So if I show you, hopefully, if it works, here you go. You see, Manchester United since 1911, country UK, number of tournaments or number of victories, whatever, 56. So why I'm doing that? Because now, how do I orchestrate my folder structure? Inside of my team folder, I will create a new one called team detail. You see? And now team detail will have a new file called teamdetail.js. So it's the same process. It's the same process again and again. I'm moving my stuff around to make sure my files are the smaller the better. Export default, and remember to import React from React. Yep, so that's pretty much the way it works. So let's see if it works. Let me refresh. I don't think that got refreshed. I didn't import it, right? So on my team component, I need to import, where is it? Team detail from, once again, /team detail/team detail. Yep, something.js if you want, to make sure we load the correct file in case we got some CSS, and you can see that still works. Imagine that we want to customize any detail about any aspect of the team detail. Same process. We add a CSS, team detail.css, And then what else? Well, now we need to add some CSS into it. So on the class, on the root element of my team detail, let me open it. Remember, guys, to add, let me zoom it out a bit for readability purposes. If you remember what we explained before, we had a class name on the root element, class name equals team detail, respecting the same name. You see, I'm reusing the same name again. And then team detail, we can do whatever we want. So for instance, I don't know, let's add a border, 1 pixel, solid blue. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Remember finally to import the CSS. So the team detail.javascript is the responsible of rendering the CSS file. Yeah. And that's it. So now you see, I'm moving my stuff all the way down. If my team detail will need more stuff, I will probably break it down again. But I hope you can see the structure of my app. App.javascript renders title and team. The team component also renders team detail, and team detail may render a new component. You see, it's the same thing all again and again. Anything else, guys? Yeah. Why? Well, but the thing is, so that process is handled by something called, maybe you heard about this, Webpack. So Webpack is a very smart package that is running with your Create React application. So that's not actually part of React, it's not actually part of JavaScript, this is some sort of external library. And that library is creating some sort of graph with your dependencies of imported, exported components, and is I think it's very, very smart. If it helps an example, so once again on the CodeDD platform, we got about 80,000 line of codes, and it takes less than 1 second to recompile everything after every change. Yeah, so I don't think that's a bottleneck. And eventually, of course, if you're working on a project with, instead of 80,000, 80 million lines of code, yeah, if that's the case, probably instead of having a huge monolithic project, they have a bunch of smaller GitHub repositories dealing with some parts of the application. Yeah, but anyway, this is not going to cause you problems in the short term for sure. Anything else, guys? No? Cool. So thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm going to enable a very short JavaScript challenge. Do you want to do beginner or intermediate, guys? Okay, so that means beginner, right? That's fine. That's fine. Let's do something, guys. Let's do a 30-minute challenge on beginner, and then until the end of the class, we'll spend the remaining minutes just reviewing the answers and dealing with the questions and answers. So the challenge will be ready in 2 minutes on the platform. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. See you in a minute.